Now, new planning guidelines have been published which are designed to make it easier for councils to build new houses. The government insists the reforms bring much needed clarity to the system and will help build the homes for the next generation. But not everyone is convinced, with some critics saying the measures will put the countryside at risk. Sky senior correspondent David Bowden reports.
Kent's only racecourse at Folkestone is under starters' orders for a massive redevelopment. It'll see the area around the track and beyond transformed, with thousands of new homes planned to be serviced by a new school, shops, doctors' surgeries and more, all aimed at revitalising the local economy. With that in mind, just a few miles down the road along the coast at Lydd, the small airport is also due for a major expansion, once again aimed at bringing business, jobs and wealth to this part of the Garden of England. Supporters say the government's streamlining of the planning system is just what this area needs.
We've reached a point in current housing where urban developments are pretty full now, and we need to look at where we're going to develop our communities, and that means more housing, and that means attracting more people so that they can go to work here. People with new skills. We can't build the community unless we have increased numbers.
But the cheers from the business community and developers are being drowned out here and elsewhere across the country by those who believe the government has given the green light to concreting over our green and pleasant land, putting areas like the world-famous Romney Marshes at risk.
Romney Marsh is very precious, and if that were to come about, it would open up the area to such extensive urbanisation that what's proposed at the moment will look like chicken feed. I mean, we are about to lose the rural character of this part of Kent, make no mistake about it. This is grade 1 agricultural land, and it needs to be growing crops, not supporting concrete and bricks.
The government is adamant it's streamlining the planning process, not scrapping it, and the nation's green belt will not become a building site. It's not just houses and commercial premises that need planning permission. Infrastructure projects like here at Lydd Airport, where the owners want to extend the runway and improve the buildings, also fall under the planning rules, though opponents of this project say it too shouldn't be allowed to take off. The pro and anti-development lobbies have been slugging the planning issue out for years, and even with the latest government attempt to simplify things for all concerned, the arguments for and against individual projects are unlikely to be any less vocal in future. David Bowden, Sky News in Kent.
Well, to discuss this further, I'm joined by Paul Nathaniel, a professor at the University of Nottingham and an expert in brownfield regeneration. He's in Birmingham. And here with me in the studio is Liz Peace, the Chief Executive of the British Property Federation. Nice to see you both. Many thanks for joining us. Professor, you first. The government says the green belt and national parks are protected. The critics say, no, this is a developer's charter. What's the truth?
Well, I think the truth is a bit of both, really. I think they're probably right that the green belt and the national parks, the crown jewels in this green pleasant land, will be safe. But there's plenty of green land that isn't either green belt or in a national park. And I think the details of the planning policy framework leave doors open for some of the more extreme forms of development that opponents to the framework have been concerned about in recent days and weeks.
What do you think, Liz? You're bound to say this is marvellous, aren't you? But some of your members will be looking at how they can push the envelope here, encroach onto Greenland?
What the developers want is clarity about where they're going to be permitted to develop. I mean, it's not in their interest to go into some almighty battle that's going to take absolutely years and cost them a huge amount of money. They're not going to bash their head up against a brick wall. So the key to this is local authorities drawing up a local plan for how they are going to accommodate the growth that their area needs.
And does this new scheme today allow for that?
Indeed it does. Local authorities are supposed to have been doing this, well, for many, many years, but given a boost by a Planning Act in 2004. Only 50% have actually done it. And those who've already drawn up a plan, their plan is effectively going to be the one they'll be allowed to use until such time, well, they've got 12 months to sort of check that it's in conformity. The real sort of fillip to development here is that those local authorities who haven't got a plan, then if a developer comes along with a planning application, his application will be judged against the principles of the national framework until such time as the local authority gets their own plan in order. So actually this is a bit of an incentive, well, a real incentive, a real push to local authorities to draw up their plans, and the 50% who haven't need to get on with doing that.
Professor, whatever happened to brownfield development? If I remember correctly, the last government set a target of 60% for all new development to be on brownfield sites. What happened?
Well, that's not quite true. The target was for 60% of new housing to be on previously developed land, which included at the time things like back gardens, and that's been changed in England, fortunately. What the current framework does do is it recognises the need for mixed development, to recognise that people want somewhere where they can live and work and play. It emphasises the need for good design. It gives the local authorities permission to refuse permission for design that is poor quality. And we are looking here at a much more intelligent approach to our urban areas. There's an encouragement to keep development in the town centres where the places where the land exists. There's a great emphasis on creating a sense of place, a sense of connection with the community. And we've moved away from a monolithic numerical target focused only on housing, which has not resulted in the sustainable communities that we were promised under the previous government.
But on my specific point of brownfield sites, why are we drawing back from that? Because many people will say, look, you know, these sites are there. In many cases, they're ugly. It's a wasted opportunity.
I'm not sure we're pulling back from them. The framework has a number of references to brownfields. What we've moved away from is a sequential test of brownfield first. And I think that has to be regrettable, because we can't make new land. We have to make better use of the land that we've got. And the move towards densification, the move towards bringing communities closer together, I think may have that consequence, although it may well not be quite upfront in the framework as it is at the moment.
And Liz, there is a fallacy here, is there not, that it's the planning law that's entirely responsible for a lack of housing in this country? We don't build because of planning laws. That's not true, is it? Your members won't suddenly flood the market with new houses. There are all sorts of considerations, not least of which is mortgage finance.
Well, absolutely, and my members who cover more than just housing. I mean, they cover commercial development, the sort of thing that forms the backdrop to you here in the city. No, I mean, there are a lot of considerations about development. You're not going to develop unless you know you can sell what you build, or get occupied what you build.
I suppose the key question for many viewers is, yes, will it make a difference? Will we find ourselves in 5 years' time with more affordable houses? Because that's what people really care about.
What we hope it will do, and there's still a lot more work to be done, is make the whole process of planning more efficient, more streamlined. At the moment, planning takes years. You measure planning applications in weight, almost. Who's going to read all this? Trying to sort of make the whole thing a lot simpler, a lot more efficient, so we actually get built what we need and also what people are prepared to accept.
What do you think, Professor? Setting aside commercial property, residential property, that's the political hot potato. Will we see a sharp increase in the number of houses being built for people who hitherto have not been able to get one?
I think that we will see an increase because there is a demand to do that. I think we need to go back to Liz's opening statements, which is that if a local authority doesn't have an up-to-date plan, then it'll be much easier to get permission for development that isn't locally desirable and wanted. And so by not planning, local authorities are planning to have an open door. And I think that would be regrettable.
Final word from you, Liz.
I think actually that encapsulates it very well, but what that tells me is that the local authorities who haven't got a plan are actually failing in their duty. They've had 8 years to put these plans in place. They need to get out there and get on with it, and then we'll see planning that meets everybody's needs.
All right, so this piece. Professor Nathaniel, many thanks for coming in. Nice to see you.
Okay.